it's been a week. We're used to recording on Tuesdays, and so I feel like I've had to take a couple extra shots to the chin this week with it being a Friday. So we've got an old friend of mine and community leader, Reggie Lewis, with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So we appreciate you taking time out of your Friday after a long and tumultuous, or hopefully not so tumultuous week, but
It's been good.
we thank you for that. So we want to be aware of your time, and we appreciate that. So, Jamie, what an eventful week. We got our kids are, I've made the notion that they're like sharks in the water here, smelling the blood in the water this end of the school year, but it's become more like I don't know, I want to say like a lion trainer in the ring. Every day you step, you don't know what's going to happen because it's like level 10.
Well, we got rid of the seniors this week, so they're done. They graduate this weekend, which means the juniors are now top dog in the school, and it feels like everybody's trying to act higher than what they've been. Right? There's a battle for supremacy in the school right now, so we gotta kind of squash that. But it's been a fun and exciting week. We had National Day of Prayer on Thursday. And a lot of our FCA kids handed out, how many Bibles would you say?
I was thinking
somewhere between 50 and 100, probably.
I mean, I would say close to 100. It was a lot.
So the Word of God was passing through our halls, and hopefully some of those kids opened them and spent a little time in the Word. And, I've had a pretty eventful week from a perspective of kind of eye-opening, I guess. I had a really tough weekend. Monday wasn't a great day. Tuesday, I got up and was headed to work, and I just kind of felt defeated. And I prayed to God, and I said, God, I don't feel like I have it in me right now. Just put me where you need me. Use me for what you need me to. And boy, did he. Tuesday, or I think Monday, a kid comes to me, and he's going through some personal stuff. And he said, hey, I know you do the podcast with Mr. Timm. Would you pray with me? I was like, absolutely, man, come on. And so I prayed over him, and, we talked for a few minutes. And then the next day I had a teacher come in, kind of the same thing. They just, 15, 20 minutes, let me know everything that's going on. I'm like, all right, God, I hear you. I prayed for you to use me this week, and you are, and I appreciate that. But I told Paige, I said, be real careful what you pray for this week, because God is tuned in and he's listening. But it's been a really good week from that standpoint, just to feel like, he's got me where he needs me to be right now, and he's using me to meet the needs of other people around me. So it's been a really good week from that perspective. And then, like I said, Thursday, we had National Day of Prayer. It was great to see so many kids out there and just, be able to hear their prayers being lifted up, to be able to pray for the students as they near the end of the school year, the teachers, that they have good, strong summers, that they all come back healthy, hopefully, closer to God than when they leave.
Reggie is a local consultant, and he's heavily involved with Cure Violence Columbus. So we're anxious to hear a little bit about that. But I'd like you to just share a little bit about your upbringing, and what your childhood was like, maybe a little bit, and where you're from, and what brought you to Columbus.
Okay.
And maybe a little bit about your walk with Christ, how you got to where you're at.
Okay. Yeah, so actually I'm adopted out of Huntsville, Alabama. A older couple, John T. and Lucille Lewis, adopted me and brought me to Phoenix City. I was 9 months old when they adopted me. Childhood was great. Parents stayed together the whole time. They were probably in their 50s when they adopted me. So everybody thought they were my grandparents. But my mom was probably the biggest part of my life, and she had a sister that had 9 boys. And so those were like my brothers, and got to really experience life and travel with my parents. We always went up north to like Cincinnati, where my family was from, in New Jersey and out in Texas. And then I had 2 cousins that actually played professional football, one with Cleveland Browns, and then the other one with Baltimore Colts, now Indianapolis Colts. But mom was heavily into church. Church was right across the street. And I also went to a private Catholic school, Mother Mary Mission, in Phoenix City. and then I went on to Pacelli. But during that time, I had a good life. It wasn't bad. I was a shy kid, and just really tried to make friends with everybody. I'm a relationship guy, and I was a relationship kid back then, and just really tried to do everything I could. But my mother was I guess, somebody I looked up to, because she always wanted to help people. And it wasn't until after my father and my mother passed that I realized how many people they had helped. And I remember my mother never being sick. And she went through one surgery where she had a intestine issue that I had to take care of. And then when she had a stroke when I was working overseas in the UK.
Mm.
And so she ended up dying that year. But that year, right after she died, man, I had so many people come to me and say, my mom helped send their kids to college, bought their house for them, got a car for them, helped them get a job, whatever it was.
Wow.
So, when you hear that kind of stuff and you see that kind of stuff, you think, man, I can't live up to that. I don't have that ability. But played football in high school, played baseball, ran track, played basketball. And my senior year, I wasn't going to play football. I wanted to play basketball. And my cousin came home and said, man, you need to get out there and play football. So I ended up playing and started off kind of rough the first game. Actually was against Smith Station and got embarrassed at defensive back, and coach moved me to safety. And then after that, I just blossomed. I was actually leading the city in interceptions. But I got to my second to last game right before we played Brookstone, and I had a knee injury, and basically took me out of all sports. I was a senior, really wasn't paying attention in school and doing the things I should have been doing. And so that just kind of rearranged a lot of stuff. I was going to go in the military, try to be a ranger and all of this other stuff. But now I got this severe knee injury. And in 1988, they were still cutting you. You didn't have the technology that you had today. So I went to a job fair and met a recruiter for the Columbus Police Department, and they were talking about a cadet program, which you can go in at 17 or 18, and you stay in that program until you hit 21 or close to it, and then they'll send you to the academy. And so that's what I did. An amazing thing about that was I didn't know the trajectory that was going to put me on. And I came into police work really trying to be, how can I help people? But unfortunately with police work, you see more negative than you see positive, and people don't always want to see you. And what happens is we as police officers become, we really suppress everything, because you see so much, you see death, you see abuse, you see trauma, and you're supposed to be this strong guy in this uniform. And, you meet a mother who's lost her child, or have a 3-year-old child that's been abused. And you have to hear these stories, and you see things that most people couldn't even handle if they saw a little bit. So my career there was 2 years as a cadet. I got on the street. I worked downtown, and then about 1.5 years on the street, I got the opportunity to ride motorcycles and be a motorman, which I always wanted to be.
Danger.
Yeah. So I always liked chips and liked Puncharella. So I wanted to kind of, be like him when I grew up. So I got that opportunity. And so, during that time, really got exposed to a lot of different things, met a lot of great people through that, wrote a lot of tickets. But one of the things I started noticing is we were doing a detail one day, and we came in, we were writing our tickets out, and I saw one of my partners, I could read the tickets, and there were 8 tickets with one guy's name on it. And I remember that 5 of the tickets were for child restraints. I said, why did you write that guy 5 tickets for the same? Well, he had 5 kids in the car that were not in seatbelts. I said, well, why didn't you just write him one and take him to Valley or Goodwill or somewhere and get him a child seat? I think Kmart was still open back then. Because what's going to happen is he's not going to pay the ticket. He's going to have contempt of court. We're going to arrest him. He's going to jail. Baby mama's going to be upset. Now he's going to get out of jail, no job because he's been in jail. And now he's probably going to do an armed robbery, probably shoot somebody. And then we'll be wondering, why did he do what he did? But when you look at it and go back, you realize very quickly it was all because I made a choice to write him 5 tickets instead of writing him 1.
And he was going to have a major chip on his shoulder.
Major chip on his shoulder. So that's probably the first time I ran across of thinking of things differently. And so fast forward, I was working downtown and got an opportunity. A kid that I knew from Pacelli, he was married to one of the executives at our company, daughter, and he saw me downtown and knew I had been looking to get out of police work. And he said something to the executive. Said, the executive's like, "You really want to leave police work?" I was like, "Absolutely." So he said, "Well, give me your resume." I said, "Hold on, I'll be right back." Ran to my police car, gave him a resume.
Had it ready.
Balled it up. He balled it up and put it in his pocket. I was like, "Well, great. He's not gonna do anything with that." But he did. I got a call a week later, but then they really didn't have anything. I didn't want to be in security. I was done with law enforcement. But during that period of waiting on them to get an interview, had a major fight downtown, and we had like 8 people in the middle of the street fighting. It was myself and a female officer, and we ran out of handcuffs. And I remember a soldier was beating this civilian up, and I went behind him, I tapped him, and when I tapped him, he turned around and just hit me in the groin. And I just lost my composure. I grabbed him around the neck, started choking him, and eventually the female officer came up behind me and was, saying, you're killing him, stop. And I finally snapped out of it. And that was at that moment I realized I had lost control. And a lot of it was working part-time all the time, stressed out, got a newborn on the way and all these different things. And I was like, I got to get out of this job. I'm either going to kill somebody or I'm going to be killed because of my actions, losing control. 3 months after that, I was given a job offer at Thesis and started working there and left the police work. Well, when I got there, I didn't know anything about credit cards, didn't know anything about credit card processing, any of that stuff. And I remember I was interviewing with one of the folks and they were asking, like, how do you handle stress? And I started laughing. I did exactly that. And she kind of looked at me and was like, I said, I'm sorry. I said, there's no stress here. There's no stress here because somebody's credit card doesn't work. I'm probably doing them a favor, keeping them out of debt, but there's no emotional stress, right? When you think about what we deal with as law enforcement, we're dealing with emotional stress. I had a case when I was in motor squad, I investigated fatalities, and I had this young lady that was 18 years old, had struck a tree on River Road and passed away. We had to go find her parents or next of kin, and actually we were out here in Smith Station. And when we found the house, 4:30 in the morning, we're knocking on their house. Father comes to the door. Mother's German. And the only thing we could show was an ID, but a actual picture of the young lady. Well, when we showed the picture of the ID, she said that was my oldest daughter. When we showed the picture, it was the baby daughter. Had taken the older sister's ID. The German lady cussed me out. She, and it was myself and 2 other people, but to sit there and see the pain that lady was in and knowing that I have my wife is pregnant at the time with our youngest daughter, and I'm sitting here going, I still have my youngest daughter or have my youngest daughter coming. And to be in that moment, I will never forget it because you don't forget what somebody sounds like when they're in pain. So, that was a defining moment within itself. Just remember that because after I got out of police work, I ended up working with the older sister. She was a manager at a bar that I was doing security at.
Wow.
And didn't even know it. I was like, I know you from somewhere. And started talking, and that's when we realized how we really knew each other. So those were moments that just kept popping up and defining. But
was that God nudging you, perhaps?
I think when I look back at those moments, yes, 100%. To see how we impact people's lives with how we write tickets, to understand the pain that mothers go through when they lose a child. And it gets bigger because during the time as a police officer, we escorted funerals with motor squad. So one of the funeral homes that we escorted for was Hill Watson People's Funeral Home. And the funeral home director was Cedric Hill.
Wow.
And that's how I met him. And I remember sitting in my police car one day and I saw him, well-dressed man, just carried himself with dignity, always come up and speak to us and just real polite. Well, when I left the police department, I didn't see him for 16 years. So I'm kind of jumping fast forward, but I was in the Leadership Columbus program as a student and a participant in 2016. And he was the chamber board chair. And he spoke at our graduation. Hadn't seen the man in 16 years. And I was like, hey, how you doing? Well, within the next 2 weeks, we saw each other 4 times, just back to back to back. And I said, maybe we need to sit down and have lunch and let's see what's going on, because evidently God is trying to tell us to get together. And so at that time, when we sat down and talked, after going through Leadership Columbus, I realized there were some things that we could be doing better in the community. It exposed me to a lot that we have to offer in Columbus, but it also, showed me what the challenges were in Columbus. So when I sat down and talked with him, him being in the chamber, he knew about economic development and some of the things that we do in the city. And he said, man, I've had 4 young Black males under the age of 25 come to my funeral home. We've got to do something. And I said, that's funny because I know of resources that are available to help. And so we started talking and working. Fast forward probably about 6 months after we started talking, we worked with somebody who used to be an ex-gang member who had turned a pastor. We were working with him, and he brought us 8 people to try to help. During that time, we tried to get him in Columbus Tech, get him resources availability. But after about a couple months, they all fell off. And so we said, okay, evidently we're not doing this the right way. What's going on? And what we realized is, as long as they're in our presence, they're fine. But once they go back into their homes, go back into the environments where they come from, we realize very quickly that environment is not conducive to support them growing or coming out.
It's not holding them accountability.
It's not a holding accountability. It doesn't want them to grow, because it says, you think you're better than me. You think, you're going to trust these guys. You don't know who they are. So we kept just, okay, God, tell us where to go. We ended up meeting this young lady named Dr. Asante Hills. At the time, she was a director at the health department from Rochester, New York, an angel. And we started telling her what we were trying to do. And she was like, on board. Don't know us from day one. Just got into town. I'm on board. What do we need to do? So we started working and going to different churches and town halls and just learning about what's going on in the community. So we understood what we could do. And we were at Winton Hill Baptist Church, listening to a program called Death by Another Name, which represented the gang activity that where we were seeing Black on Black crime, or, young men killing other young men from a retaliatory. And the death by another name meant physical death, but the person who did the shooting going to jail. So you have 2 people that die, one physical, but one metaphorically, from the perspective of you going to prison for the rest of your life changes from that part. A family, 2 families lose. And so, and that was put on by, at the time, Marshall Countryman, which is now the sheriff in Columbus. He was putting that on with the coroner. And we had an opportunity at Winton Hill Baptist, Pastor Sherman's church. We were listening to one of the programs. He did it at 3 different churches. And while we were there, a young man got up and spoke and said, you can't do anything about this until you address the unresolved trauma that these young Black men are dealing with, whether it's abuse, whether it's sexual abuse, whether it's seeing their parents or someone in their family die. That's what it is. And in the Black community, we were always saying, you don't talk about mental health. You don't cry. You don't do these things. So he said, we have to learn how to address those. So I went home that night after that, and that resonated in me. So I turned on my TV, have Dish Network, and Dish saves the favorite channel that you look at all the time. Well, I don't look at PBS. But when I turned on my TV, a Black background came up, and in gold letters, Cure Violence was on the screen. No noise, no music, nobody speaking. It just came up. It's like, okay, that's interesting. So I sat there for the next hour and a half and watched that documentary. And I called Cedric and said, I think I found the process that we need to really affect change in our community. So myself, Dr. Sante, and Cedric got together, and of course, we started going out touring around Columbus and explaining to people what we were trying to bring to Columbus, but COVID hits. So we're like, well, we're done. We're not going to be able to do anything. The unfortunate part was we started seeing an increase of shootings. You know, we went from an average of 21 per year. Now we're at 35, we're at 45. You know, we were hitting the 50 mark in 2020. And then in 21, we had, you know, the big year of 72 homicides in our care. And we were having, you know, almost felt like 12 a month, but we were having a high number. And so part of the Cure Violence model is you do data analysis. And so it has an epidemic approach, and it basically treats violence as a health epidemic.
Biology teacher,
You'll love this. So it takes you from looking at everything as a moral issue and looking at it as an adversity. And by doing the analysis, what you're doing is finding out the who, what, and where. And because of it, people are like, I don't understand why you want to do something that I don't understand how violence is a health epidemic. It is. So if you look at a virus, when we had COVID, what do? Where is it clustering? So where are all the crimes committed? Where are all the shootings happening? 31903 south side of Columbus. Then you look at how is it being transmitted. So when you look at COVID, who's transmitted? Those who have weak immune system, those who's more susceptible to receive the virus. Those who live in marginalized communities, those who are in areas that have a high violence rate, right? Yeah. And then the third thing is, how is it spread? Well, it's spread from family member to family member, or family member to close friendship, so we got to isolate. Well, when you talk about shootings, you shot my homeboy, so I'm going to shoot you. I'm going to shoot one of your homeboys. Well, if I get killed, my little brother or my son may see me get killed. Now he has that same anger. So that's the transmission part. We're transmitting that same mentality to the next generation.
It's becoming generational.
Right. So when you look at it, that's the spreading, clustering, and transmission, which represents the same thing that a virus is. That's why we look at it as a health epidemic. And then when you look at the social determinants of health, where you work, where you worship, where you live, where you play, violence is part of that. And so when we started pulling the numbers, it showed us exactly where we needed to go. 31903 South Side, East End 6, and Midtown 7, and then North End up in 2nd Avenue, North Holland. Those where we had the most events occurring. And then we broke it down to see who was involved. 15 to 25-year-old Black males made up a high percentage of those. And we broke it down by the day of the week, what type of weapon were used, who was the victim, what was the medium age, all these different things to help us understand where we need to focus. And so during that time, we were trying to come up with a way with how we do this. And this is where God really started dropping the breadcrumbs. We had Cedric's son and daughter ended up having to come home because of COVID. So they were in town. So we had a 5-person team, and it was amazing. Cedric's son, who became a pastor, he had been watching Cedric and I go to different, events, and we were talking, and he kept listening. He sat down with us one day. He said, I want to tell y'all something. He said, the seed that you plant today, you will never see the shade of that tree. And you can't let that discourage you, because you all are on a track. You're being blessed to go down this road, but don't get discouraged because you won't see that fruit. You won't see that shade.
Did that remind you of your mom some?
Oh yeah.
And what?
Oh yeah. Still hadn't correlated that point, but yes, it started. And so one of the amazing things that started happening, we started planning stuff out. We started planning, how do we bring that epidemiology approach to the table? One of the things we never did, we never talked about money, never asked about money. And this is where God really started playing that tune for us. So we'll sit down in a meeting, we go, well, do we need to start a 501(c)(3)? Do we need to come up underneath another 501(c)(3)? It's like, nah. Dr. Sante worked at the health department and said, okay, how about the health department? Yes, I think that's where we need to be because this is a public health issue.
Wow.
So Dr. Sante got it approved for us to try to come underneath the health department. But we were still working. So we start putting these pieces together. And then we have 2021, we had the 72 homicides. 2 of the homicides were caught live on Facebook as they happened. One was at a barbershop on South Side, and the other one was at the suite off of Airport Thruway. And the one at the barbershop was a video shoot, and there was a barber in the next room filming towards, his customer, but filming towards a video shoot. Well, somebody had put their location up, and the rival gang had saw it, and they rolled up and lit the place up. And the craziest thing was there was a pool table, and there were 3 guys standing at the pool table, which has a meaning. But there was probably a 2-year-old child in diapers walking around, and a young lady with him. And when the first shot happened, you see like 2 shots, and you see one of the guys at the pool table. He's immediately hit, and he's dead. I mean, he just locks up, he drops, gets hit again, and then he hits the ground. The guy on the left goes down, and the guy on the right gets down. The young lady luckily grabs the baby and runs around behind the bar protecting the baby. Then 4 hours later, the suite shooting happens. The guy just laying there shot in the club.
Same day,
within 4 hours. And so that Tuesday comes around, and the mayor, the police chief, the sheriff, crime prevention guy, they're in an interview in a news conference talking about what happened that weekend. And they start talking about the cure violence. To move forward, they start pushing that with council. And, we had to go speak in front of council, give them the data that we were talking about. But basically what happened was council said, well, how much money you need? We don't know yet. We're still doing our analysis. And they said, well, we're going to offer you some money. Will that help you? Absolutely. But it needs to go to the health department. And long story short, we kept going back and forth. Well, y'all need to come underneath the city. It's like, not coming underneath the city. So go back to that discussion we had about 501(c) or health department. And I had to break it down to them. 501(c), y'all not going to trust us. If I come underneath somebody else's 501(c), then I'm going to be at their mercy. We're not going to be priority. If I come underneath the city, we'd be great, but y'all are elected officials. You can change your mind at any time that we don't need to support y'all anymore.
Wow.
The best option for us is the public health department. Why? Because the people we need to work with are already going there.
Yeah.
Birth certificates, SNAP, WIC, all the different things.
STD.
They already have a relationship with the health department. So those are the people we're focused on. So you already give money to the health department. So you have a protocol already set up. They know how to respond back to you. They know how to do the reports. Secondly, it's a state agency. So long story short, we finally were able to work through it. And I did a 2-year budget for them, daily, monthly, quarterly budget, all 24 months, how we would utilize the money. And at the top, the founding 5 are not getting paid in this. We've never been paid. We won't get paid because we were doing it because that's what we were led to do. Well, the amazing thing was they agreed on it. And so we went to work. So we had to hire our staff. And how the cure violence model works is 3 components. The first component is identifying those who are credible messengers. And what that means is you identify people. It's just like you're an Auburn fan and you're going to hang out with Auburn folks, right? Because y'all get along, you
Were you to lose?
Yes. You said
he didn't want to say it.
I was being nice. But what happens is we needed folks who had lived experience, right? They've been to prison, they've done street activity, and the community knows them not as snitches, but as you from the street. You know exactly what I've been through. And we need them because we need somebody who can relate to what to the people who are involved in the areas that we need to go in, who can go into those areas and lead the people away from violence.
Wow.
So that's what we call them credible messengers. And we trained them, gave them mediation skills, told them how to mediate conflict. So that was the first part, having that trusted, credible messenger. The second part is we have to identify those who are at high risk. You shot somebody, been shot, your homeboy been shot, family member been shot, you've been incarcerated, heavy in the street activity, selling drugs, sex trafficking, whatever else, history of violent behavior, you've been to prison. If you have 4 of those, we consider you high risk. Well, what we have to do is partner with organizations to remove your barriers, whether it's find your job, get your GED, things like that.
To replace those bad habits.
Bad habits. The third thing is getting the community to change the mindset that we will accept violence as normal. It's not normal. So how we did that was we have Family Fun Day, where we would have go to those communities, not tell everybody, come on downtown or come up north. No, Frank Chester Rec Centers. We would have a Family Fun Day where we would bring resources in, like Georgia Power to talk about utility assistance.
In their own backyard.
Own backyard. Why? Because they don't have the knowledge. Remember, we tried this early on in 16 with 8 folks, and we couldn't get it to stick. And what we learned is they don't know. It's not they're ignorant. It's not that. They've never been exposed to it.
Wow.
And those were the things. So, as I told you, we never asked for money, and then all of a sudden we were given $500,000 to start the program.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So now we've got to be able to get people who have felony backgrounds into the health department. The state of Georgia. Young lady named, I call her Kat, I think her name was Catherine, was in HR, went and did research, searched the whole database for any kind of recs or any kind of exceptions that she could find. She found the exception on a Wednesday and got it approved that we could hire people with lived experience that had felonies on their record. Wow. She was killed that Friday in a car wreck, coming back from her son's football game, which was a young kid at Carver, where his whole family was killed, coming back from his football game.
Mm. And she'd already set the ball in motion.
That was the next God wink. So we're sitting there with an opportunity to hire people, .gov emails. You can take advantage of anything in the state of Georgia because now you're a state employee. You're not a janitor. You're not some contractor. You are paid by the state of Georgia. You have benefits and all the things that come along with it, which means that most time they would have never been. God opened the door for them to be exposed to what we can have, but you thought you couldn't.
Wow.
So we go through that. So now we're able to get funding, which we didn't ask for. We got the exception to put them in there. And so we start hiring a team. And as we start hiring a team, we have a director, and then we had 2 females first, and then we were able to get 3 more afterwards. We were working at Carver, going to Kendrick, going to different schools. Every time a shooting happened, we would go out on scene. And we were going out on scene to really get information about who may be involved and to see if it was a retaliatory event. And during that time, we got to know the police officers, we got to know people in the community, and everybody started calling us. Hey, you need to come here because this has happened. And then we had an event where a young kid was run over by a train. We were able to help get him up to Atlanta, but get his parents up to Atlanta so they can help. So part of the community norm is understanding the resources that are available. So remember, I said I went through Leadership Columbus. I was on the board of Goodwill now. So I'm learning about all these organizations, all of these connections. Then I get to go to Leadership Georgia and be part of that. So now I'm making connections at different levels all over the state of Georgia. And it's just one thing after the other that God keeps putting in front of us. Now, this is where I started realizing and thinking about my mom. I'm in my own lane. This is not somebody else's destiny. How did I come together with 5 people that I hadn't seen in a while, didn't know? And what we found out about Dr. Asante, her father was in prison when she was a young girl, that she used to go there and visit. So she understood the issues with reentry and parents coming back or a family member coming back. My uncle killed his son, and I was exposed to that 2 doors down from our house. So we had all these experiences, and then I started realizing, you know, I'm a black man that used to be a police officer. So you think about George Floyd, you think about all these police against black situations. So I had to deal with that. You know, I was in a mixed relationship, so my kids are mixed. My daughter's gay, so I had to deal with all the LGBTQ stuff that everybody's saying about the kids. But both of my daughters were in the military fighting for this country. When my youngest got in the military, she immediately got shipped over. She was on a destroyer, and part of her group was the ones that were chased by the Russian frigate. So all these little moments. And then I work in corporate America. There's not too many African Americans that I can see that I can aspire to be. I had Norman Howard, but you know, those are the things that I was challenged with. And these are all things that we are starting to see in our community now. We're starting to see the the division come up. We're starting to see where we're moving away from the word. We're moving away from Christ. We're moving away to saying what the world wants, right? And so as we started moving forward and doing the work, you know, it was the moment where we had these moments, man, where we started seeing maybe we can make a difference, you know, doing the work we were doing with Cure Violence. Then it was one of the bigger moments was, you know, I went through a divorce during that time. And what was amazing about it was I went through the Freedom Program.
Wow.
Right.
Yes.
And so it feels like I'm jumping around, but it's not, because it has a moment. So we did the 2 years. We started seeing the decrease in violent crimes. And a lot of people say, well, how you know you did that? Well, we also worked to try to bring people together and stop fighting each other and saying, I'm going to be the one that's going to do the work. No, I'm going to be the one no, we all need to do the work. And after I got my divorce, during that time, I came into work and Scott Scoggins was in there and sits outside my office. And I woke up at 3:00 that morning and was like, God, I don't know what to do. I'm tired. I'm done. You tell me, just tell me what to do. So I go into work early, and he just happened to be in there.
A lot of self-reflection. So if you're listening, Freedom's program, our local church, one of them, Highlands, does just one of their programs, and a lot of self-reflection.
Yes.
And you're able to reflect and drop a lot of I'd say emotional and physical baggage and let
trauma.
a lot go, and trauma. And so sounds like you're doing a lot of self-reflection there, and hit rock bottom.
Yeah, it was rock bottom. And so I went in and talked to Scott, and, you know, and here's the thing. He had never asked about my wife, Holly, at the time. Never. And we've been around each other for years. And he was like, hey, man, what's up? And I was like, hey, what's going on? And I had walked out of my office and didn't speak to him. Then some said, go back and speak to him.
So this is a coworker of yours, right?
Yeah, go back and speak to him. So I turn back around, I go back and speak to him, and he's like, man, how you doing? He's like, how's Holly? And I said, well, we're divorced.
Mm.
And he stopped. He said, man, I'm sorry to hear that. I was like, no, it's good. I said, man, you know what? We got men's night tonight at the church at Hollis. Would you come? I said, yeah, I don't know. Well, the funny thing is, a friend of mine in Auburn had called me and said, why don't you come to men's night? I didn't know they were the same. So my friend Vince had called and said, hey, man, why don't you come on up to Auburn? Invited a couple of the guys he knew, Vince and Hunter, to come up to Auburn.
I know Vince from Smith's. Yeah. Good guy.
So he was like, come on up. And I was like, man, I don't really feel like driving up there. It's going to be late when I get back and all this other stuff. Well, then Scott said, why don't you come to men's night? I was like, sure, I'll go. As soon as I walk in, I bump into Scott Donahoe, which is a good friend.
Wow. Yeah.
And Scott kind of knows a little bit about what was going on with me. And he's like, I want you to come into my office and talk to me after the service. So go in service, man, and it touched me that day. I'm just in tears. And so he's like, I want you to meet me at the office a couple of days. Sure. Go down and talk, and said, so what you searching for? man, I need peace. I need peace. I said, okay. Said, you want to get close to God? I was like, yeah. Because I know him, but I don't know him. I said, all right. He said, I got something for you. Something called freedom. It's probably going to be some men there that you know. There's going to be a lot of them that you do know, and some of you don't know. But I think this is where you need to go. So, of course, we do 6:45 a.m. on a Tuesday morning at Highlands Church office. And of course, I know a lot of guys in there.
Getting started in the word early.
Yeah.
That's
So we get in there, and I'm sitting there, and they start going around asking people their names and telling about themselves. And I'm just boohooing. I'm like, really? You're crying in front of all these guys, breaking down, and there ain't nothing. I can't even talk. So he's like, what's your name? I'm like, I think I felt like 5 minutes, but it probably was 5 seconds. And I finally said, Reggie Lewis, I'm just tired of running. That's all I could say.
mm.
So then the second time we come back, we're now in smaller groups, and he's talking about something, and Scott looks over and says, man, what is peace to you? And I said, never known it. I have no idea what peace is.
Ran hard, man.
And I said, now I know that if God showed me what peace was, I'll probably know exactly what it is. But right now, I can't tell you. I have no idea. Once again, I'm boohooing. I'm like, bruh, you need to go get yourself together and stop being a crybaby. Well, basically, I was just being vulnerable. I was like, I don't know what else to do, right? The program had run its course as far as our contract with the city. Had some challenges with the team. And so I'm in this space. I'm dealing with divorce piece and everything else. So probably about the 5th week or the 5th session, I think it's session 5 or 6 we're in. I had moved back down. I moved downtown, gave Holly the house, and I got a phone call or a text, and somebody said, you selling the house? And I went, no. I was like, great. She's selling the house. And I had given her house because I thought she wanted it for her legacy, right? So, of course, sent her a text, said, need you to call me. And she waited about 15 minutes. And when I answered the phone, the first thing out of my mouth was, are you okay? Now, that was not what I was thinking when I first wanted to talk.
God worked in those 15 minutes.
It did. And we ended up standing on the phone probably for about 45 minutes. And that was probably the first time we had real conversation since everything had gone down. And then we went into that next session. It was really talking about that. And I was like,
forgiveness, maybe.
Right. And so, through all of that, it was like within 4 months, I was fine. And not fine wholly, but I've seen people go through divorces and they, this is like my second divorce, but it was like, I'm good. I'm healing, but a lot of the anger and all that was gone. There was none. And so what I started seeing was a difference. I'm reading more, I'm in the Bible more, I'm getting the words, work is turning around. There was things happening with Cure Violence that was, still pushing us forward. And, we got to the conference, man, and it's just like you are cleansed of all the baggage, but the righteousness and mercy is placed in your heart now. You're not left with a void. You're left with something of direction and where you want to go and where you need to go. And that was an amazing thing because
found your peace.
Yeah. And it was amazing because I'm like, needed this a long time ago. And what started to happen was now I'm starting to think of things we got to do for the program. And my relationship with my kids is turning around, and just different things are starting to happen. And so I've done 4 freedom classes after that.
Wow.
I've been in since, right? Co-led.
He's on a freedom train.
Been on the prayer line this last time. And even this last time, I had a young guy come up, man. And he talked about his infidelity, which I had done in my first marriage. And it was like I was looking at myself. And I said, I just put my hand on his heart and I said, young brother, young man, I know exactly what you've been through. I did the same thing. And what I can tell you is there's a way out. There's absolutely a way out. And I'm a living testament to that. I know right now you're in darkness and, you're hurt. Your wife is hurt. Your kids are hurt. You're embarrassed. All those things reign supreme. But I promise you, he has so much grace and mercy. You're not that young man at the bottom of the, down in the pig pen looking up at your father, thinking you're not worthy to have your father's arms around him. He has his arms open waiting for you to come up this hill and to see him. You just got to take that move to do it. And those were the things that were happening. Because I fought against trying to be on the prayer. I was like, I'm not ready to be on the prayer line. I can't do that. But that was that defining moment for me. But and an amazing thing that happened. So at the end of 24, Holly and I decided we won't speak to each other. We're just going to go our separate ways. And some amazing things started happening. Her daughter gets pregnant, has her first grandchild. She gets a promotion at work. Her father passes away, which was a very difficult thing, a traumatic thing for her as far as her life with him. Very traumatic. And now she's free, because usually when she had her other 2 kids, he would just act up. And now she's getting to enjoy her grandchild the way she should be able to enjoy that grandchild. And my youngest daughter gets married. Just all these things, I'm able to move back. But one of the guys in my freedom group, he went through a divorce. And I was able to, he's not from here, so I was able to help him by, hey man, come just live in my house. I got this big house. Come, just live.
I get put back on the couch, Jamie.
Yeah.
Holler at Reggie and go stay with him.
I feel like I'm starting a group home now, because I just picked up a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old that live with me. So, those things started happening. And, it just gave me a renewed sense of purpose. And now we're working on something with Cure Violence where we're bringing technology to the table. So job at TSIS, behavior models. I found technology. So during this time, we do a documentary called Koga, which represents gang life in a small town.
I was blown away at the extent that was, you could tell all the research and the data and feet on the ground that was put into play there.
Yeah.
And it was very well orchestrated, very well documented. And I think the Lord definitely had your hands right where they needed to be. And
he had it on all players. Blake Russell was in the documentary. Went to great baseball player, just got hooked on drugs.
He's got an amazing story. And
got an amazing story.
We wanting to have him on here.
You got to get him because this all tie in. So he had this idea. He wanted to figure out a way to tell the story of basically what we did with Koga. He bumps into something. God led him to speak with David Swanson and Caleb Money. While he's talking with them, somehow my name comes up that they needed to talk to me. And I go to sit down with them, talk to them, and I ended up having to leave for a meeting. And you remember when I said there were 3 guys sitting at a pool table.
Mm-hmm.
One of those guys is Cosmo that was in the film. He got shot in that video.
Was he the one that was a paraplegic or in the wheelchair?
No, he got shot in the foot. So he was the one walking by. But amazing thing with him, I didn't know that. And when I met him through somebody else. And we were just sitting outside one day after we came from an event, and he was doing filming for us. And we were just sitting out there talking. I was like, yeah, man, it's like, yeah, my foot hurt because I got shot. And I went, shot when? Well, you remember the video thing that got caught on Facebook Live? He's like, yeah. He said, I was doing the filming, and I was the one shot on the left side of the guy who was killed. That video was the reason why we got the funding. Once again, another God moment. So I went there to talk with David and Caleb, and I had to run to take care of an issue with the program at the health department. And I called Cosmo. I said, hey, do me a favor, come over here and speak with them, because they were trying to still figure out the direction. They didn't have anybody. I said, you don't mind? You got time to come over here? Absolutely. He gets there. I leave for 2 hours. When I get back, they have the storyline all across the wall. They have different gang members they need to talk to, all of this. Those 3 guys came from Cosmo. So now we shoot the film, everything, we go through several renditions of it. But what I'm moving forward is Caleb and David go to a mission trip, I think, in Africa. They're with these 2 guys. The 2 guys are shown the documentary. The 2 guys have the health platform that I'm now trying to bring to Columbus, because they want to talk to us to see how they can bring their platform.
It's amazing how those relationships all enter.
Yeah, and they're out of Dallas, right? Well, come to find out, they had several investors from Columbus that invested in that we didn't know. So once again, we have these moments where God is just saying, laying the groundwork for us. And my team, we meet every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m., go through the stuff. We open with prayer, we close with prayer. We still don't ask for money. We just allow God to lead us in the direction that we need to go in. And so right now we're on the verge of trying to bring this technology here, because what it'll do is it'll connect all the folks who provide services with those who need the services. And we'll reduce inefficiencies. We'll reduce no wrong door. What that means is sometimes we often send a person to the wrong place because we don't have a real understanding. Now we'll have a model that will read and go, this is the best place for this person to go. So it creates efficiency. And how did I learn that? I learned that working at TSIS.
So tell for our listeners or people watching, tell them where they can find more information on Cure Violence and what they can do to support the cause, whether it's monetarily or maybe volunteering some time or what. So
one of the things you can find, go out to cbg.org. That's where you can get a lot of information on the state of epidemiology and how they came about with the forum. I think that's important for you to get that framework, because a lot of people struggle with seeing it as a health epidemic. But when you start reading the information, you really understand where that comes from. The biggest thing that I would say is get involved where your passion lies. This is not work for the faint of heart, because the folks that we are having to engage deal with hopelessness, lack of opportunity, and they've probably seen more stuff than the average person have seen, right? Like I told you, I have 2 young men at my house right now. One, 16 years old, been kicked out, grandparents' house, mom can't have him at her house, dad probably is not stable, probably been through some stuff. And he's at my house because he reached out to somebody and said, if I don't find somewhere to go, I'm gonna go to the streets and I'm gonna go to the gang, right? The amazing thing with him was across the street was a family that I grew up around. His homeboy that was killed was a school bus shooting that happened in Columbus. That was his homeboy that was killed. That kid's family was a family that lived across the street from my house that I grew up with.
Small world.
And so those are the things. And so how people can get involved, when I say volunteer, I try to get people to find out what's your lane, what's your passion. Because this has some heaviness to it. And when I walk into jail every Monday and teach Jobs for Life class, there's some heaviness that you're not going to be able to just walk in there because you're confined. You walk through 2 doors, you get on a locked elevator that you only can get up with the key. You get off an elevator, you're in a hall that's locked down. You can't get through the door unless they buzz you through.
Kind of like when we go into the classroom, right?
A little bit.
Just kind of locked in.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
Yeah.
kind of like
Same thing. Yeah. So, those are the things. So volunteer wise, they can reach out to me on Facebook, and really just tell me what they're interested in doing. Because what we look at and what we're doing is basically saying the only way we're going to have healthier communities is through collaboration. Everybody has to do the part because violence is just the end. That's just an outcome. The abuse, the trauma, the lack of jobs, lack of opportunities are the things that are the nucleus and the root causes why we have violence. And so if we can't address these, this is not going away. If you address these, this will reduce. And we're starting to see that.
So let me ask you this, Reg: if we got somebody listening,
mm-hmm.
and they a young man, we'll say, and they catch themselves going down that wrong path, and they want to learn more about how they can kind of, they can reach out to me and Jamie or one thing, but what's your advice to somebody that catches themselves either in the thralls of this, or maybe they've overstepped, or they just feel themselves kind of backsliding or going down that path?
Yeah.
What do you have to say to them?
Yeah, the one thing I would say to them is there is an adult that they trust. They always have somebody that they may look up to. I heard you earlier talk about the young man speaking to you because of what his mother was about to go to. The young man I just got in my house, he reached out to somebody that he knew from church when he was younger and said, I need help. And that's what the number one thing I would say to the young men and women, because we're seeing a high number of young girls being involved in the violence as well, is if you have an adult that you trust, reach out to them. And then what I say to the adults, actively listen. Don't try to be the motherly figure. Don't try to be the fatherly authoritarian. Be willing to listen and hear what they're saying. They're not, yes, they're young, but they've been exposed to so much through Facebook and these phones and everything else. They've been exposed to more than we ever have probably been exposed to in our lives, because that 15 seconds they can get it. And what I would say to the young folks is don't be afraid to be bold, to stand alone, because too often you want to follow because you think it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And deep down in your heart, I know I shouldn't do this. When you get that feeling, walk away. Walk away.
Amen.
Because you may not get an opportunity to have a second chance.
Wow. Good stuff.
I really appreciate you coming and sitting down with us, spending time and just sharing a lot of that. I mean, it's things you don't want to think about. You want to try to hide and pretend it's not happening, but you're in it every day, and we're appreciative that you are. And hopefully, like I said, one of our kids or someone else comes across what you just said, and it either points them in a direction to help you guys out and start them on a new path, or it's someone who needs that redirection.
Yeah.
And this can kind of be like you said earlier, a seed planted for them.
Yeah. And they can reach out and through God's word, and they can find that peace that you found.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how you have to do it. You may feel lost, but you're not.
Amen.
He's the lighthouse. He's just waiting for you to take that direction of what the lighthouse is showing you.
Nope.
Man.
Would you mind praying us out today?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Heavenly Father, I just want to say thank you for this time and this moment to be able to share the things that you have done for us, God, and the things that you continue to do in our city, in our country. But God, most of all, I ask that you just continue to reach out and put the Holy Spirit on those young men and women that are searching for that peace, that are searching for someone that love them the right way, and to just care about them, God, just to show attention of, we love you. And God, I thank you for being so merciful. And one thing, God, just awakening my heart and showing me where you needed me to be with Cedric and Dr. Asante, Pastor Hill, Dr. Gray, and all the organizations that have come along this journey with us, God. But thank you for these two men just having the knowledge to invite me along, and the friendship and the meeting of Tim and back at Tesa's. God, this is a great opportunity to share. But God, continue to just bless over them and this podcast and the things that they're doing, that they continue to just go out and reach these young men and women so that they know there's peace, there's mercy, and there's grace in your heart. And in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.